Who designed it? I was going to say, who designed a new intro screen for the school board meeting on YouTube? Looked pretty nice. Kudos.
All right.
Ready?
I think we're ready, Dr. Ruskin.
Okay. I'm going to call the meeting of the Novi Community School District Board of Education regular meeting Thursday, April 16th, 2020 to order. I'd like to welcome everybody, both everybody in our virtual waffle here and everybody out there who's watching. Board members and cabinet and other guests are all participating virtually today. So, Mr. Mena, if we can have a roll call, that would be fabulous.
Trustee Cook.
Here.
Trustee Hood.
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Roney.
Here.
Trustee Ruskin.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
We can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we will have the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Smith. Mr. Mena, if we can get a roll call, please.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Roney.
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. This will be our first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. Due to our virtual meeting that we'll be holding tonight, there was a Google form that was put out to the community, and Dr. Matthews.
There are no responses currently in that Google form.
Okay, and we have no one here in our audience at the ESB. So we will move on. Next is the consent item. On our consent agenda tonight, we have approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, April 2nd, 2020. We also have the approval of the bills. If I can get a recommendation.
Move to approve the consent items as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Murphy and supported by Mr. Cook. I guess we can't talk about consent items. So, Mr. Mena, we will take a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Roney.
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin.
Yes.
And Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have our action items. Tonight, we have a few things for action, and we will start with our secure entry renovations and our contract award. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. At our last board meeting, we presented our bid pack number 1, secure entry renovations for Deerfield, Parkview, and Novi Woods. We reviewed the bid packs with you, and tonight we have Ms. Minnick, Mr. Donnelly, and Ms. Arbuckle with us. Mr. Donnelly from Plant Moran Cressa, Ms. Arbuckle from McCarthy Smith. And so we discussed this at our last meeting, and these would be the projects that we hope to get done this summer. They would revise our current secure entries to make them even more secure, to have everyone enter into the building and then enter into the office instead of entering into the hallway. And if you have questions, Ms. Minnick, Mr. Donnelly, or Ms. Arbuckle could answer them. And so I will turn it back to you, Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you. I think we'll start with a recommendation.
Move to approve bid pack 1 on the secure entry renovations as presented.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Murphy and I believe supported by Mr. Mena. And if we can have any questions before we take a vote?
Quick question. Is there a time limit if this gets delayed more than we already are? Are the bids good for a capped period of time?
So this is a recommendation to award. So if we award was technically today, we would be issuing letters of recommendation to the contractors, which releases them to start doing the procurement process that allows them to start doing their shop drawings, which is all the documentation they have to submit for approval to the architect for all the materials. So they would be submitting lists and documents on all the equipment, shop drawings, all the miscellaneous things that they actually want to purchase. And after that period of 3 to 4 weeks of submittal and approval by the architect, at that point they would go out and start purchasing those materials. So we are in what we call procurement process right now, right after this meeting. So we're really not dictated by any outside factors. If we go back to work as we're talking about right now, May 1st, this would not affect us at all because we're not slated to start construction until summertime break anyway. If for some reason we could start earlier and we have the materials to install after the procurement process, I don't see any issues with starting earlier.
But what if we are delayed for some reason? Are there any clauses that the contractors put in that they,
No.
these bids are good
Right.
for 60 days or et cetera?
No, upon award, they're contractually obligated to supply everything on time. But let's say there was something that's out of everybody's control. But on this project, we really don't have any materials or equipment that's what would consider a long lead item or custom made. So we have, adored hardware. We have a small unit that, it's more of equipment that's off the shelf. There isn't anything right now that we're purchasing that can be made in the shop, like the millwork, the cabinets, or it's coming off the shelf that's sitting in the warehouse. We've asked them those questions in our post-bid interview when we did the review with all the contractors.
But they all have a force majeure clause, right?
It's not a force majeure. I would have to look at it. It's not a force majeure clause. I would have to ask Jill about that. But there is a clause that's tied more to the schedule. So basically, they can't ask more money for delays or anything like that. If I would have to get back to you on that because it's not exactly force majeure. It's to do with like disasters, like acts of God.
Okay.
If I may clarify, I believe that their bid pricing had to be held until board awards. But once, as Agnes said, once the board awards, then we're into the contract phase, if that provides any clarification.
Well, I just wondering if we get delayed longer, if any of them are going to have a right to come back and say, well, now, I've got other jobs going on too. I'm going to charge more. But, we were under contract up to a certain point and a certain schedule.
Right.
And if COVID delays us for another 2 months, what could happen?
Well, I guess we're all going to be in the same situation, but again, we're slated to do procurement for the foreseeable future. So even if we were delayed for 2 months, we would not be, really starting to the beginning of the summer, when the school will be out. So we would have to get to the point where we would be past the, middle of June for that to really have any effect on us.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not the concern now. God forbid if something happened, we were extremely extended, right? We've kind of talked about it and talked with the contractors. we would have to basically at that point try to figure a separate entrance as a temporary entrance and secure it as such, build some temporary walls and find a traffic path to get into the building and still move forward with the construction of these entrances.
Okay.
As we draft these contracts, we'll be sure that the proper language is inserted to protect the district in the event of any extended executive orders. Something to expect.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Arbuncle and Ms. Minnick. I think that we are ready for a vote. Mr. Mena, if we can go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for all of your work. We appreciate you, even in these tough times. Next, we will move on to the continuity of learning plan.
Excuse me.
Yes?
I'm sorry. I had a comment. I tried to raise my hand, but
Oh,
I
I'm sorry, we missed you. Go ahead, Mrs. Murphy.
That's okay. I just wanted to say, I did not actually read the whole entire recommendation, so I hope that it's not an issue. I'm assuming that it's not because no one said anything. And then secondly, Jill, I just wanted to say thank you for sending out those designs to us before. I think they came Monday or something like that, that we saw the designs for all of the entries to be able to take a look and understand what we were really voting on tonight in terms of that. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope they were helpful.
Thank you, Mrs. Murphy. Sorry, we missed your hand. Dr. Matthews is not
That's sorry, that was
doing
my
his job
fault.
over there. Okay, so next up, we have the continuity of learning plan, and I will pass it over to Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. This is asking for approval. As you know, Governor Whitmer issued her Executive Order 2020-35 on April 2nd, closing Michigan schools for in-person instruction for the rest of this school year. The executive order also required school districts to provide a continuity of learning plan that would provide meaningful virtual instruction to all students. Later on, in our work session, Dr. Weber and his team will kind of provide the board with some details. The recommendation that we have for you tonight is that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education support the development of a continuity of learning plan by the Novi Community School District teachers and administrators that will provide meaningful virtual instruction beginning April 20th. So the recommendation was changed. Instead of supporting the plan, you're supporting the development of the plan by our teachers and administrators. And that will be there once you log out and log back in. Or Miss Holly said you could press F5, but I don't know what that means. So I wouldn't encourage you to do that right now. But the recommendation is that the board support the development of a continuity of learning plan by the Novi Community School District teachers and administrators that will provide meaningful virtual instruction beginning April 20th.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. I appreciate that. Does someone want to make that recommendation just by?
I will. You can refresh your screen. Will be there. I recommend that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education support the development of the continuity of learning plan by the Novi Community School District teachers and administrators that will provide meaningful virtual instruction beginning April 20th.
I'll support.
Thank you. Recommendation by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. If anyone has any questions, this is really just an action to support the development of the plan that's being set forth by the executive order by Governor Whitmer, and that plan will be implemented moving forward. As Dr. Matthews said, Dr. Weber will have an opportunity later to share the details of that plan. But if anybody has any specific questions to this recommendation, please let us know.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
Is this through the end of this school year, or would this be going forward beyond? for now and beyond?
Currently, it's through the end of this school year, but we are going to put together a team to identify what other meaningful options we can have ready and in place if indeed this either lasts into the fall, or if during the fall we have to revert back to a virtual online instruction period.
And Mr. Cook, if we are in need of that, we could bring forward another recommendation to support that learning plan at that time.
No, I just asked because there's no end date on this, and
Right.
just want to clarify.
This one really is for through this school year.
Okay, I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Mr. Mena?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next up, we have negotiating team for the 2020 contracts. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. As you know, board policy requires that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve negotiating teams. This year, we have contracts that expire for the Novi Education Association, the NEA, which is our teachers and non-instructional personnel, counselors, social workers, etc. We also have the Novi Transportation Association, which is our bus drivers and mechanics. And we also have the International Union of Operating Engineers, which is our maintenance department. And so tonight we would recommend that you would approve the negotiating team. Dr. Kinzer is the lead. The co-lead is Ms. Minnick, and then Dr. Weber and I are team members. We'll bring in others if we need some particular expertise. For example, we've used Mr. Gordon for Schedule B and some of those kinds of things, but this is the team that sits at the table with those groups to negotiate those contracts. So we would recommend that you would approve those negotiating teams this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Can I have a motion for the recommendation?
Sure. I recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the negotiating team as identified above.
Support.
Support.
Oh, wow, we have lots of
I win.
support. You
I
win?
win.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Murphy. Recommendation brought forth by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Any questions on this before we take a roll call vote? Seeing no hands raised. Oh, wait.
Oh, there is one.
Dr.
Dr. Kinzer has his hand.
Don't forget to take yourself off mute. There you go.
Thank you. I just want to clarify one thing that Dr. Matthews said. So we are negotiating this year our NEA agreement, our NTA agreement, and our NESPA agreement, not
Oh, sorry.
IUE.
Oh, that's my fault. Sorry.
Sheila says she has that, so the recommendation with the above identified will be changed to make sure that we are in line with the above identified as corrected.
It's a lot easier when you can go across the hall and ask a question as opposed to try to Zoom a question all the time.
It's okay, we understand. Okay, any other comments or questions? Great. Mr. Mena, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yeah.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. We appreciate that clarification. Okay, next we have the proposed graduation resolution. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. We bring this to the board tonight as a resolution, and I've talked with Kevin Sutton at Lusk Albertson, and this is a resolution regarding the 2020 graduating seniors. And I'll read the resolution for you. Whereas the Novi Community School District graduation policy states, in order to graduate and receive a high school diploma from the school district, the student must successfully complete all coursework required by law, all credits, coursework and assessments required by the school district, and all other requirements that may be established and published from time to time by the board. And whereas our administrative guidelines state to be eligible for graduation, a student will have completed 4 years of high school, earned 23 total high school credits, including all required by the Michigan Merit Curriculum courses and credits, completed all scheduled assessments. And whereas in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the governor of the state of Michigan issued various executive orders, including Executive Order 35, which suspended in-person K-12 instruction for the remainder of the 1920 school year. And whereas pursuant to Section 5A of Executive Order 35, the governor has provided school districts with 4 non-exclusive options for awarding graduating seniors the credit necessary to complete the Michigan Merit Curriculum and receive their diploma. Now, therefore, it is resolved that 1, the Board of Education delegates to the superintendent the responsibility for choosing and implementing a fair and appropriate process and method to certify that seniors graduating in 2020 have met an appropriate standard to receive their diploma. 2, the Board of Education directs the superintendent or his or her designee to notify the Board of Education and graduating seniors and their parents of this process as soon as reasonably practicable, but not later than May 1st, 2020. 3, the Board of Education will recognize the 2020 graduates as having met the requirements for graduation. 4, the Board of Education for the remainder of the 1920 school year suspends any policy or administrative regulation dealing with graduation. 5, the Board of Education will recognize as valid the superintendent's decision. And 6, the Board of Education will revert back to board policy and administrative guidelines on graduation for the 2020-2021 graduating class and those classes that follow thereafter.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Can I have a recommendation to support all that was read above, please? Mrs.
Move to
Murphy,
support the recommendation as presented, resolution as presented.
supported by Mrs. Roney. I saw her hand raised. Okay. Any particular questions in regards to this? We talked about this at our policy committee meeting on Monday evening. Mr. Mena, Mr. Cook, myself, Dr. Matthews, had a policy meeting to discuss the details of this, but are there any specific questions from any of the other board members? Mr. Smith?
Is it appropriate to ask what the current thinking is? I know I was on a call earlier today with a parent in the Troy district, and one of the things that they were deciding on was it going to be pass or fail? Would they allow the student to have their GPA? Would they actually have a choice? And there wasn't much parent involvement, so I just wondered what the current thinking is.
We will get into some of those details in the continuity of learning plan that Dr. Weber is going to talk about in just a little bit.
But it sounds like you're asking us to vote that if we vote favorably, we're going to pass the delegation to you to make the decision, and then we live with whatever the consequences are?
Part of the discussion this evening is to gather a sense from the board as to which direction you would want to go. We have a direction that we think we want to go, but that's why we wanted to come to the board tonight to have part of that discussion with the board. Before we present anything to the parents, we wanted to get some input from the board this evening.
So as you know, I'm usually not difficult, but it sounds like you're asking us to vote on something that we haven't talked about yet.
We're asking you to vote on a resolution basically that suspends this year's graduation policy so that we can figure out what needs to happen for these graduating seniors in order to get them to graduate.
Okay.
I think,
Go ahead, Mr. Mena. Yep.
if I may, and I think probably what Mr. Smith was keying on was number 5 there, that the board would recognize as valid the superintendent's decision on this issue. I think one can interpret that as saying that we are pretty much giving you carte blanche at this point to come up with whatever plan, and we're basically accepting it ahead of actually looking at it.
I would hope that the board recognizes that I typically don't make decisions in a vacuum, and so this is certainly an important decision for our graduating seniors. So we'll certainly make the decision after thoroughly vetting it with the Board of Education.
Mrs.
And I know
Murphy?
that in our policy, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Finish up, Mr. Mena, and then I'm Mrs. Murphy.
Okay, in our policy committee meeting, we discussed that, there are going to be a number of students that are sort of going to be on the cusp, and that we're going to have to look at them on a student by student basis. Will there be an opportunity for parents of those students who might not be given the opportunity to move on or graduate, if that were to happen, to sort of petition and ask for reconsideration?
Currently, there is that option, and I think that we will continue to look to that option. My sense, in having spoken with Ms. Carter at the high school, is that the vast majority of students will graduate, and there will be just a handful of cases that we really have to examine closely.
Mrs. Murphy, your hand's been up
Thank you.
for a little while.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, those administrative meetings on Monday, I know that some of you probably actually still have to work or are doing other things, but those have been really helpful in kind of having a broader picture understanding, because they've talked through a lot of those different things. So, that was one of the issues that came up this last time, and there were a lot of touch points, it seems like, around that. I know it certainly sparked some thinking by me. I had a brief conversation with Dr. Weber after that as well. Just, we're navigating new territory, but hearing the thinking of our administrators, they're really taking into consideration every possible scenario, and even the political ramifications and, consequences from some of those decisions. So that's been really helpful for me to be able to, I really appreciate being able to participate in that and hearing the thinking that's going on around that by administration. So that's just because I agree, Tom, could be a big issue for some parents. So I know that it's being something that our administrator is very aware of, some of the challenges that might pose.
Yeah, and Mr. Smith, just so that you're aware, we'll have some more discussion on this later tonight during the work session, in specifics regarding those and what the administration team has been talking about specific to grades and GPAs and things like that. In regards to this resolution, I believe we need to kind of just change our policy regarding graduation to enable things to move forward regarding looking at students being able to graduate or not.
The resolution is asking the board to allow us to have some flexibility as we look at the graduation requirements for just this year.
Mr. Mena?
And just to clarify for everyone, then a lot of the questions that are coming up should be answered by the time that the plan comes out, which will happen no later than May 1st.
Yes, May 1st, we'll have a firm decision on how all these things are going to be implemented. My sense is for the vast majority of our students, the regular graduation requirements will apply. There will be, as I said, a handful of students that, for whatever reason, are on the cusp, either because they decided to wait until the last minute to take a class because they needed to pass all their classes this year in order to graduate, something like that. And so those are the ones that we're really going to have to examine closely and try to figure out what's in the best interest of those students.
Okay. Anything else in regards to this particular resolution at this time? Anybody else's hands raised, Dr. Matthews? No?
I do not see any.
Okay. All righty, Mr. Mena, if I can have a roll call vote on this particular action item, please.
Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
and Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have our second opportunity for comments from the audience.
And there are none, Dr. Ruskin?
Okay. If any of our, I guess I would call all of our guests who are not board members or cabinet audience members, since they were virtually on this call. If they have anything they'd like to say, just please raise your hand And if not, we will continue on.
They are mainly here at Dr. Weber's beck and call
Okay.
to talk about the continuity of learning plan that we'll
Okay.
talk about here in a few minutes.
Okay, so we'll get to them. Thank you for being here. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Matthews.
My report's very brief this evening. We continue to provide food service every week, and we continue to communicate with our community on a daily basis about issues related to this closure. And so far, I believe things are going well. Dr. Weber will talk about the continuity of learning plan that was approved by Oakland Schools today. And so we will start implementing that new plan starting April 20th. And we believe that it will be a good phase 2 plan as we move forward. And that's my report this evening.
Thank you. We will move to our administrative reports. Mrs. Minnick.
Evening. I do not have a report for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kinzer.
I do have 2 items to share. One, I want to update the board on negotiations with the NEA regarding the calendar for the 2021 school year. As you know, this is a mandatory subject of bargaining. So every year we put together an administrative team as well as a teacher team. We come together and we negotiate a calendar for the following year. So we have been working through our calendar for the 2021 school year. And there are 2 pieces of the calendar I want to specifically mention to you. But first, I'll let you know that I do believe we're very close to finalizing a calendar. And we'll have it for you, I would imagine by the next school board meeting or sooner. 2 pieces that I want to talk about that I think everyone in the community does need to be aware of now. We are planning to start with our traditional day after Labor Day start date. So the executive order 2020-35 does give us parameters to start sooner, and we did engage in robust conversation around that topic, developed pros and cons for considering an earlier start, and made the decision collaboratively that it's in the best interest of the community to stick with our traditional day after Labor Day start. The second piece that I want to mention is a change that is going to have a fundamental benefit for our district. Changes in the State School Aid Act last fall now allows us to build in up to 38 hours of professional development time that count as student instruction. And what that really means is we can go back to including some professional development days within our school year. And we're able to build in 4 of them spread throughout the school year. This will allow our Office of Academics, as well as other forms of professional development to happen with all of our staff on those days. It will absolutely result in far fewer guest teachers in classrooms, and our teachers present with their students much more often, which we know is important. So our calendar will feature 4 of those days. I want to thank Heather Burnside and our NEA team. They're a pleasure to work with. We really do put our heads together and engage in some really strong collaboration to put out a schedule that's in the best interests of all stakeholders in the district, most importantly our students. So thank you. And also Robert Baker, principal at Novi Middle School, has been a key part of our team on the administrative side as well. The second item that I want to mention tonight is one of the groups that we're particularly mindful of during the closure are our first-year teachers. Being a first-year teacher is difficult enough in typical times, much more so during our closure period. So we've decided we're going to hold our final Mentee Monday of the school year on April 27th, remotely via Zoom. So we will finalize our Mentee Monday series on the 27th. And that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. Dr. Weber.
Hey, I'll save my comments for work session. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next, we have board communication. I don't have much to say tonight because we will be talking during work session and going around the table, the virtual table, and giving everybody an opportunity to talk and, you know, have their questions answered and whatnot. But I did want to say a big thank you to Dr. Weber in leading his team to put together the continuity learning plan. I know that him and the CALs and administration and teachers and many, many others throughout the district have been working tirelessly over the last several weeks to get that put together, both for formalized application purposes and also to implement a plan that's going to engage our students. I also wanted to thank the special education team led by Ms. Patel and Mrs. Theopolis. They also put together an extraordinary document and have already reached out to the special education students in our district who receive IEPs. To just start that process rolling to make sure that there's engagement with those kids and coming up with the best way to continue to educate them despite our virtual challenges, I would call them. So that is all I have. And if you guys just wave at me, Mr. Cook.
had a hand up.
Who?
Mr. Cook.
Mr. Cook. Okay.
I didn't see it on here, but committee reports, seeing that the governance and policy committee did meet. We didn't discuss only the resolution regarding graduation. I just wanted to mention that there were a couple other things in there. One, we were discussing some of the calendar items for governance and getting them, making sure we got some of our work done even while we're off. And the other one we were talking about was potentially getting a policy regarding virtual learning. We have no policy at this time. So we've asked Dr. Matthews to get with Kevin Sutton and see what we can come up with for virtual learning. So I just wanted to add those in there from the Governance and Policy Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Very quiet. Oh, Mrs. Roney.
Hi, everyone. We've been busy at the Roney household printing up little face shield,
nice. Yeah.
And then, of course, little ear savers for the healthcare workers and other people. What prompted this on was the Frog Force. They are doing, let's see, what do they call it here? Shields to help our community. And they're looking for anybody with 3D printers at home that can, you know, do some printing, or also they're looking for donations. So if you go on their Frog Force site, there's more information, but it's, of course, for a very worthy cause. They have right now, they've committed to making 200 of the face shield little, you know, things for our Novi Police Department. So take a look at that, and anybody else out there listening, you know, take a look at it. And if you can't find it, then give me an email and I'll send it out to you. But thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Roney. I appreciate you bringing that to the attention of the board.
Danielle?
Yes, Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, thank you. I was on a call. We all were invited to Jennifer Smith. She's the MASB liaison, I guess, for legislative affairs. So we were all invited today to join her call with Senator Mike Shirkey. And I don't know if anyone else was on, but just he talked through several things related to schools, obviously, but one was that they are currently working on what they're calling a negative supplemental, which I had never heard that term before, but I suppose it makes sense. That they are projecting that the current estimates for the current budget that we're still working under as a state will come in $1 to $3 billion lower than the existing budget. So like we do our budgets, the state's doing its own budget. He said that priority will be to, as much as he can, priority will be to maintain the foundation allowances. So schools won't get a negative hit this year. But of course, he made no promises for next year, although he said he would continue to prioritize maintaining foundation allowances. So that was all. It's, from the finance committee, I guess we just wait and see. And of course, Jill has a handle on that. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sitting on that call. We appreciate your input. Anyone else? Mr. Smith?
This might be a question for Dr. Weber, but when we move into our work session, is that going to be the appropriate time for me to seek to understand how the decision was reached to not start school early? I know in our previous board meeting, we had talked, and I thought Dr. Weber had shared that it might be a good idea with regards to the summer slide that we would bring the kids back a week or two early. So I just would like some more information on that. I heard Dr. Kinzer say there was a pro and con chart made, but we didn't get into much detail. So will we talk about that during the work session?
Certainly can.
Like an appropriate time to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing everybody nodding their heads no, I think that I will just move on and ask for motion to adjourn to move into our work session. Mrs. Murphy?
Move to adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Murphy made the motion and there was Mr. Smith supported. Doesn't that sound great?
All right, we'll give it this.
All right. Mr. Mena,
We'll put
if we
him on
can
the
have a
record.
Call, please.
Okay, Trustee Cook,
Yes.
Trustee Hood,
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Roney,
Yes.
Trustee Ruskin,
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. So we will adjourn. I don't have an actual gavel, so I don't make it dirty here. And